Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Secure Your Dream Job in Times of Uncertainty digital event hosted by the CMI Wales Board. My name is Craig and I'm an events coordinator here at CMI, and I'll be shortly handing over to Emma to begin today's event. If you have any questions during today's event, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we will try to answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later today for those who have booked to attend. The event recording will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Emma to begin today's event.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks very much for that introduction. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the CMI Wales seminar entitled Secure Your Dream Job in Time of a Crisis. We're very pleased to have you join us today. I'm hoping that you're here because you're looking for a new role. You could be a new graduate looking for your first role, or somebody with a career experience and maybe looking to make a change. And we hope that this panel discussion provides you with some insight as to what employers are looking for in 2022. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to those joining us from the Chartered Institute of Management Accounts. This is a collaborative workshop between the two chartered bodies, and it's great to be able to extend this to those members, so welcome. I'll start off with some brief introductions. So my name is Emma Bell-Davis, and I will be your host for today's session, which we're running as a panel discussion. I'm a board member of CMI Wales region, and I'm a leader in an energy consultancy. I've been involved with recruitment within my organisation for the last 15 years or so. For many years, I've led our annual graduate intake of geoscientists, and I've been tasked with business growth, looking at technology experts, senior postings, running campaigns for senior principal scientists, and also business development specialists. And I'm joined by some fabulous speakers today who I'm really looking forward to discussing this topic with. So some brief introductions. Rebecca Tinknell is a graduate recruitment specialist working for Newton Europe. She has been in the company for just over 18 months, and prior to that, she worked for a recruitment consultancy in Bristol, where she specialised in social housing market. As somebody who didn't really know what they wanted to do when they graduated, Rebecca has really enjoyed the transition from agency recruitment to in-house, and now specialises in the assessment part of graduate recruitment process at Newton. So welcome along, Rebecca. I'm also joined by Matt. Matt Bryan is our Associate Head of Higher Education Partnerships at CMI, and he's our all-round expert in tools that the CMI have available to help you. So welcome aboard today's journey, Matt.
Thank you.
And I'm joined by Lucy Tothill. She's a business analyst consultant working at Turner & Townsend. She's been with the company just under 2 years, and prior to that was a student at Swansea University, where she studied business management. Lucy graduated in a time of crisis when the COVID-19 pandemic was in full swing, and using LinkedIn and personal connections, Lucy was able to secure a role with Turner Townsend. She has also undertaken a final year project with CMI and has been a board member in the past. So welcome aboard, Lucy, today. As you will have seen from the seminar listing, the topics that we have planned to cover today: preparation before applying, so looking at networking, research, demonstrating your employability and use of social media; application, so how you make your application stand out from the thousands; interview, what impresses and what doesn't; some tips on video interviews; general success in work, what makes some achieve quick promotion; what to look for in a job and things to consider within your longer term career. We're also welcoming questions, as Craig said, and we'll aim to have some spare time at the end to answer a few. So without further ado, let's get started on our first topic, which is preparation. So Rebecca, I'm just going to ask you, if that's okay, how should candidates prepare ahead of applying for a role?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Emma. So there's a couple of key things that I think you need to consider before you even apply to a role. So first of all, get to know the organisation, get to know the role a little bit. I think especially in times of a crisis, or if you've just recently graduated and you're panicking because all your friends are getting roles and you're not, it's very easy to apply to anything and everything that becomes available. But I think you really need to take a step back and think, is this right for me? So do the values of an organisation line up with what you're looking for? Have you got the right experience as well? So I think sometimes it's worth pushing yourself a little bit, taking that extra jump up. Other times, if it asks for very specific experience and you've got that, then it's probably, you've not got that, then it's worth putting your energy into a different application. Job rejections can be hard and it takes a lot of energy to make that application. So if you can prevent that for yourself, then just apply for things that are right.
Yeah,
I think
that's
as well.
Great.
Oh, thanks, Emma.
Did you want to add anything else, Rebecca?
I was just going to say, get to know the recruitment process a little bit as well. So you've got an idea of what you're in for. Quite a lot of these grad schemes have got lengthy application processes. So make sure you know what you need to prepare as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Matt, how would you suggest people can go about networking and find their future employers?
Well, I think there's a few options out there. I think for those of you who are either still at university studying or have recently graduated, I would definitely keep an eye out for events put on by universities. I'm constantly invited to universities events where they're really keen to engage with their alumni, and they often have guest speakers or people a little bit further down the career path. And they're fantastic events because you can go along and you can chat to people from different industries and who've been down through the same programs that you have at university. And get some real practical tips and make those connections in organisations that you might want to be looking to apply to. I think also from a CMI perspective, keep an eye on the CMI events. I know this is a virtual event, but post-COVID, we are going to be moving back more and more to face-to-face events. And they're a fantastic opportunity to get out there and again, meet people a little bit further down the career path than you or in different sectors that you might want to move into. Just thirdly, I'd also add, we have the CMI mentoring service. So we're really lucky at CMI that we have members from right across the spectrum of industry. We're not siloed into one particular chartered area like some of the other chartered organisations. So we're really lucky to have a really broad base of members. And we have a mentoring program where you can sign up and you fill in a profile and you can apply to be mentored by some of our more experienced members. Which is a fantastic resource and tool for asking questions, for getting insight into industry. So I'd really encourage you who are members on the call to check that out.
Yeah, that's great. And I fully endorse those graduate events. And as you say, using that mentoring, many members of our board are actually mentors on that programme. So you can tap into some real unique talent there, which is great. So thanks for that, Matt. Lucy, I just wondered from your experience, do you have any top tips that you've used?
So not top tips that I've used myself, but actually something that someone used and kind of approached me with. So there was a student from Swansea University who was interested in joining Turner & Townsend. And about this time last year, I got a LinkedIn message from this person. And she was just asking me loads of questions. She said that she'd seen that I'd went to Swansea, worked for them. What was the company like? What was the recruitment process? What sort of questions are they likely to ask me? And just by being able to kind of ask and reach out to that person. So she reached out to me. She didn't know me. A, she's putting herself out of her comfort zone. B, that leaves a really good impression on me. And it also then gets her kind of a whole load of knowledge that she wouldn't normally get just from looking at the website. And that person is now actually working for Turner & Townsend. So it's kind of proof in the pudding that it does work. Yeah. And, if you're reaching out to someone that's already in the company, the chances are they're going to be impressed and probably go to one of their recruiters and go, oh, wow, I've just had this graduate that's reached out to me. I've never met her before, but she's obviously really keen. And, that's then that person's name known and it's that foot in the door. So I'd recommend doing something like that.
Yeah, that's great. Really good tip there. And it's really nice to hear a success story as well, Lucy. So thank you for that. And there was a candidate that I interviewed for a graduate role recently who really impressed me with that preparation. They were really thorough. And when I asked how they'd prepared, amongst other things, they had basically LinkedIn stalked the interview panel. So they really understood the interview panel. They understood what made us tick, what we were posting about, what we were liking, what we were sharing, and really where our passions lay. So they were able to tap into those people that you had there and understand kind of what the way they were wired and the way they worked. So really interesting, just to add there. So thank you for your input there, panel. I'm going to move on to the application process. And it's really how to stand out from the thousands. In our 2022 graduate recruitment programme. It was advertised for 1 week. We had over 500 applicants during that short period of time, and we had 2 days to screen those 500 applicants between 3 people. So how do you shine in that scenario? My top tip would be to fulfil the brief. If it asks for a cover letter and a CV, then provide both. Really read the questions. What are you being asked for? Really keep it clear, keep it simple. So Rebecca, you've obviously run a lot of recruitment campaigns within your organisation. What are you looking for within those?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. And I completely agree with you. I think keeping it simple really is key. At Newton, for our graduate roles, we don't actually take CVs or cover letters. So we do have candidates that spend a lot of time preparing those things and then find out we don't need them. So I think you're completely right. Take the time to read what is needed of you and make sure you fulfill that brief. I think people that are successful are ones that, like you said, do the preparation and sort of go that extra mile. So similarly, some of our roles are quite technical, but we do have people from sort of non-STEM and non-technical backgrounds apply, and assessors are really impressed when they've gone that extra mile to prepare, do some extra revision and push themselves beyond their comfort zone to get through those technical assessments. I think the other thing that is really key for us is around your energy and your enthusiasm as well. So make sure if you are going through assessment centres or going into interviews, whether that's virtual or in person, that you're really able to bring your true personality and your passion into that interview as well. And I think that's both through examples that you give. So talk about a different variety of experiences, but also around things like body language, eye contact, and how you build rapport with your interviewers as well. So whether that's through a LinkedIn stalk or just a bit of chat before the interviews, find something in common with them. And if you're able to kind of break down those barriers beforehand, someone's more likely to remember you. So I heard of a candidate who interviewed with us this week. They spent the first 5 minutes of the interview talking about Manchester United. And that's fine, because it meant that, for the candidate, it had broken down who the assessor was, makes them a bit more of a real person. And the assessors will remember them because there was something a little bit different about them as well. They built that relationship really easily. So yeah, that would be my advice. Be yourself as much as you can. Attitude means a lot, especially at a graduate level, and keep it really clear and simple.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Really good top tips there. So Matt, I'm just curious, what resources do we have available within CMI to help with that sort of application process?
Yeah, so in our Careers Development Centre, we did some research last year, and we found that only around 1 in 5 of UK undergraduates was really confident in producing a good CV. So there's some really good practical tools available on the CMI Career Development Centre. So whether that's from actually building a CV from scratch, there's a tool that takes you through that step by step. Which type of CV you might need for different situations. I think we're talking a little bit about that later, and getting those basics right. And then a CV checker. So if you have got a CV that you've already produced, you can upload it to the Career Development Centre, and it will automatically check it and feed back on your style, your skills, the presentation of the CV, and point you in the direction of resources on the Career Development Centre where you can amend and improve your CV. So some really practical things. We've also got maybe sort of before you get into that CV stage, a skills diagnostic tool where you can assess yourself against the CMI professional standards, and basically benchmark your own skills and also areas where you might want to improve a little bit. And so you can then take content journeys through the Career Development Centre to improve their skills. But more importantly, when you're getting to that application and interview stage, you are confident in then talking around the areas that you're good at, your skills that you're confident in, but then also the areas where you might want to improve. You're showing that initiative that you're committed to that self-improvement, you're committed to that professional development, so that you're not just giving those kind of stock answers to skills questions. So some really good practical tips. And I don't know if we're going to talk about interviews later now, if you want me to touch on interviews now.
We'll come back to interviews in a short while. But I think that the management diagnostics tool that you referred to there, it's actually we've focused some of our discussion so far around new graduates, which is great, but I think that tool would be really good for those career changers, the ones that maybe want to jump from one industry to another, to really understand the core skills that they bring and those transferable skills. That's the kind of language, isn't it? The common language, the thread between all of us, really.
Absolutely. And there's actually different versions on there, so you can judge whether you're a new starter, whether you've got 3 to 5 years experience, or whether you're a senior manager. Again, if you're looking to change careers, there's a version for you, so you can go in there, self-assess, and give an idea of what you're going to bring to the table.
Great, thank you. So Lucy, I just wondered on this particular topic if there's anything else that you wanted to add from your personal experience.
Yeah, I think as a graduate, you're not expected to have loads and loads of experience. You've just come out of university. This is likely going to be one of your first roles. So, your experience will be limited. It might be, an internship, it might be a placement year, or it might just be a couple of weeks. And I think sometimes, just look at the behaviors and the values that the company is asking you for, and actually kind of think outside the box. So, for example, are you a runner? Are you a football player? Think how, for example, if you run a marathon, you can kind of add that into your CV that you run a marathon and that you're really motivated, you're determined, because it's showing those skills and it's still showing that you've got those attributes which are desirable to the employer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good top tip, actually. And when I was looking through the pre-submitted questions last week, there was one about somebody was asking about, they were a new graduate, but people were looking for experience. So how did they bring that experience? And that's a really good example that you've given there of how those extracurricular activities that we all do, how you can really show that skill and determination. The other thing that you mentioned briefly was internships and work experience, and I'd really recommend people trying to get internships and that level of experience at the more junior end of their career, and getting involved in all of those things. The volunteering that you did with the CMI board when you were an undergrad would have been absolutely invaluable as well.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, so I did a internship in my first year of university, did 2 months at a company in Bristol, and a member of the team that I worked with in Bristol moved to Turner & Townsend, and actually that's how I got into Turner & Townsend, was because they approached me and said, oh, you finished university, what are you doing now? We've got this amazing opportunity. So actually, you might start in one company and you think, and then you'll end up in another just from the movement of people between roles. And again, it comes back to that key of, connect with people on LinkedIn, people that you're meeting all the time. Just, you never know where that opportunity is going to take you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks, everyone. So we'll move on to interview now, and sort of what impresses and what doesn't. So one thing that I'd sort of start with is it's always useful to ask the interview format so that you can prepare and be well prepared in advance. And again, a top tip would be really stick to that brief. If you've been asked to prepare a 10-minute presentation, then do so. Don't prepare so many slides that you're not going to get through them in 10 minutes. And you then end up rushing the content. This is really your chance to showcase yourself. So Rebecca, coming back to you, can you talk us through different types of interview that you've had experience in looking after before?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple that are quite similar in terms of sort of a behavioural interview and a competency interview. So if you find out that the interview you're coming in for is behavioural, then they'll likely ask you questions such as, tell me about a time when, and what they really want to know is about your past experiences, what you've learned from that, what you might have done differently, or what skills you've gained from those particular experiences. And a competency interview, very similar. In terms of competencies, I like to think about it as skills and behaviours. So things like self-awareness, perseverance, determination. And again, the assessors will probably ask you, tell me about a time. But again, we want to make it really focused on that question that they're asking. Another type of interview, and we do ask these at a grad level, is a technical interview, and it will vary hugely depending on what role you're applying for. So if there is a technical section in your interview, again, really worth finding out exactly what that's going to entail, and make sure that you do the preparation and you have the knowledge to get through that. My advice for those types of interviews as well is to make sure that you let the interviewers sort of into your thought process, so that if they are asking you questions, even if you don't get to the correct answer, they can check in on the assumptions that you're making, on the calculations that you're doing, and that will really help you relax into the question and help them understand how you think as well. The last type of interview that is quite often asked in consultancy is a case interview. So you'll be given a situation or a business scenario and asked how you would respond or what type of actions you would take. And again, often there's not one correct answer, same as real life, but the interviewers will really want to see how you structure your approach, and how you can use your past experience to feed into your approach as well. So again, just be really clear and concise in your thought process and your response.
That's great. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to talk a little bit about occupational personality questionnaire, which we have used extensively within my organisation in interviews. So I'll explain what that is. It can be abbreviated to OPQ, so occupational personality questionnaire. So it's a personality measure which assesses an individual's personality preference within the workplace. The results are interpreted in line with the role's key behavioural expectations to see how well somebody is potentially suited to a job. Ahead of the interview, you would be sent a link to a third-party website to complete a series of questions. An example of one that we have that we use typically gives the candidate 4 multiple choice answers per question, and you have to select which one you're most like and which one you are least like. And the questions often repeat themselves to gain a really accurate depiction of your characteristics. And that OPQ really looks at 3 key areas. So relationships with people, your thinking style, and your feelings and emotion. And when answering an OPQ questionnaire, it's really important to note that it measures your style and not your ability. Therefore, there's no right or wrong answer when completing the questionnaire. My top tips would be to complete it as honestly as possible. Understand your character traits and embrace them. We all have them. We all have traits and challenges that we're working on as individuals, and that's okay. Think of a list of experiences that can be used to present your character and your personality traits. Quite often you will be asked to give an example of a time when. So types of questions that could be linked to your OPQ results could be such as the following. So within the relationships and people category, you might want to consider how you interact with others. Do you take the lead or do you follow others? How do you feel when you're meeting new people, and how do you make decisions in terms of your consultation style? In terms of thinking, this category really looks at how you read and interpret data and information. So consider, do you enjoy working with statistical data, or do you prefer handling opinions and feelings? Do you seek novel ways of working, or are you happy working with routines? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your personality characteristics. Within feelings and emotions category, that would relate to how you think and feel internally about different situations, and topics along there could include, how quickly you trust people, whether you enjoy competitive situations and the like. I would also give a top tip: if you disagree with how the OPQ has depicted you and you can provide experience-based evidence in the interview, then do so. There are some inaccuracies in this, as with any sort of test. So if you do disagree with the results, I would make sure that you stated that and give a good reason as to why. Also, within my organisation as a candidate, you are entitled to ask for the candidate report after the interview. And I think it's well worth doing that, to spend some time looking at this so you can understand how the information is presented. So is there anything else that the panel would like to add in terms of interview? Matt, did you have anything that you wanted to come back to?
So it was just about the tool that we have around the interview simulator. I don't know if you want to speak about interviews first, or shall I cover this first?
No, go for that. Yeah, that's great.
So we've got basically an interview simulator on the Careers Development Centre. So you can sit, for all intents and purposes, a mock interview using the camera on your computer. And it will give you instant feedback through AI about your body language, your speech tone and speed, the quality of your answers. And so you can do it as many times as you like, and it has different sectors, so finance, engineering, healthcare, different questions for different sectors. And what it will give you is an instant feedback on how you're coming across on camera, down to things like, is your camera too dark? Are you sitting in the right place? And so you can really prepare, because obviously more and more initially first round interviews are going to be virtual these days. So you can get that instant feedback. There's also a bank of general interview questions, so common questions that are asked in interviews, and suggested techniques for answering those questions about how you can fill out those answers with your own experience. So some really practical tools that are available on the CMI website.
That's great. And I mean, the interview simulator sounds absolutely terrifying, to be honest with you. But I can imagine it's incredibly useful if it's something that you haven't done for quite a while.
It's really, really useful, and just to get that instant feedback. And obviously it's just you and the camera, so you can mess up, you can take it again, and there's no one else to laugh or to get embarrassed about it. So yeah, I'd really recommend it.
That's great. Thank you. Lucy, did you have anything that you wanted to add at this stage?
Yeah, so I think one thing also to remember when you're doing the interviews is it's not just a one-way thing. So, you're joining a company, you spend a lot of your life working, so you need to make sure that the environment's right for you. So kind of go in with the approach of you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. It tends to be at the end of an interview where they go, have you got any questions for us? So I think prepare those, make sure you've got everything that you want to understand, because I found in the past that I've gone into interviews and thought, actually, this company isn't quite right for me. And it's better that I know that now before I even start with them. So, having that opportunity to just be able to ask those questions back is really important. And I think also, like I said previously, and Becky alluded to it with the someone who was talking about football, is, when you go in, do have those open conversations, get chatting, ask about what they're interested in. For example, when I interviewed for Turner and Townsend, one of the interviewers had studied geography at uni, and I had a massive world map behind me. So we were talking about that, which was amazing. And then one of the other guys, I do triathlons and he does triathlons too. And automatically you've just got that common ground. It eases you in. It also kind of to them goes, oh, wow, they are personable. They can communicate. They can talk about other things other than work. And, a key part at Turner and Townsend is, having that well-being, being able to step away from your desk and actually kind of, sign off from work. And I think being able to show that you can do that as well, and that you're not just, a working robot, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely, Lucy. For me, it's something, making that connection with who you're interviewing makes them real, being sat on the other side interviewing. I love it when I've got a connection with somebody, whether it's because we've climbed the same mountain or we've swum the same lake or whatever it happens to be, or you've had that adversity through triathlon, whatever it happens to be. It's really nice to make that connection.
And I think also then if you do start with them and then you see them in the office, it's automatically, that first day is daunting. If you've already got that kind of common ground, it's something you can automatically go and speak about. So I think definitely that. And then one final thing that I would say is a lot of interviews are online now. And it's just being prepared for that, because there are a lot of kind of technical issues sometimes. So just make sure you join the call kind of that little bit earlier to make sure everything's set up. It's not going to cause you any stress, and you can really kind of run everything really smoothly.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Lucy. Rebecca, did you have something that you wanted to chip in here?
Yeah, just I would echo what Lucy's just said about virtual interviews. When I interviewed for this role at Newton, I got myself fully dressed in workwear, even down to my heels as well. So I was fully in interview zone, even though I was sat in my bedroom at my parents' house. So I think just getting yourself in that headspace is a great way to start. The other thing in terms of preparation, and a lot of people have probably heard of this before, but around the STAR technique, and I'm quite a visual learner, and I would encourage anyone else to do this as well. So writing out lots of different stars and either taking it down the route of experiences and thinking about, if you've worked on a group project or you've handled a particularly tricky stakeholder, or there's something you're really proud of delivering, using that example to write lots of different competencies and just literally writing out the stars. Or the other way, if, as Lucy mentioned earlier, you're a grad and you've not got loads of experience, think about it from a skills point of view. So if you know that the interviewers are likely to ask about teamwork, start with that and then go and think about what experiences could relate back to that. And I think, although a lot of people have heard of the STAR technique, actually really getting down into it a bit deeper and having those in your mind is really useful, especially if, as most people do, you get nervous before an interview, if they're already in the back of your mind, in your consciousness, then hopefully you won't forget them and you'll feel slightly better.
Yeah,
On the
that's
other
great.
hand, sorry, I was just going to add, don't be too prepared. We have a lot of grads that come in that are like basically reading from a script that they've got in their brain, and it makes it really hard to build the rapport with interviewers, and can make you come across as quite ingenuine as well. So although you should definitely do the preparation, try and relax into the interview as much as you can, and don't just go from that script. Be able to do off it.
That be your authentic self, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So just for those that might not be aware of STAR, so situation, task, action, result. Have I remembered it correctly? Gold star.
Gold star for you, Emma.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to video interviews and talk a little bit about those now. So recently my team have been using video interview tools as part of our recruitment process, and it's a really good way to fairly review a large number of applicants. But I appreciate that for some it can be really intimidating. I understand that. So typically you would receive a link to complete the video interview within a set time period. Within our process, candidates are typically given around 10 preset questions that appear on the screen. These are set and they're specific to the role and the level of the role that the candidate has applied for. They are usually a mix of technical and background questions, and there's always a chance in our process for the candidates to leave a question for us. So some top tips on completing that video interview, which I know is really daunting for many. Just referring back to what Rebecca said about when she was interviewing for her current role, really treat your video interview like an in-person interview. Prepare, wear clothes that are going to make you want to succeed, because mindset is really the key to success. Look at and speak to the camera. Eye contact can be very important to create a personal connection, even if the process seems just one way. Give it your full attention. Be somewhere where you feel comfortable and without distractions. And when I mean without distractions, I mean without your phone next to you, but also distractions behind you or noise distractions that might happen. Try and get in a place where you don't have a barking dog or the doorbell going or lots of noise behind you. Research the company and read the job ad. This way you can really speak knowledgeably about working in this area and the attributes that you could bring to the role. Do your hardware and software check, make sure that everything's working and that your internet connection is really stable. And don't worry if a question doesn't go to plan. It's more than likely that they won't, but I guess using the tool that Matt's talked to us about, that would be a good tip as well. So if a question doesn't go to plan, just move on to the next one. Don't let that poor question affect the rest of your answers. We also have set times to complete the questions. So if your previous question has gone wrong, don't try and re-answer it in the next question, because you're then running out of time to answer that next question. Just let it go and move on. Really be authentic. Avoid reading a script. Have some clear notes that might prompt you to remember key information that you want to get across. And then really with our interview, we're really keen on hearing from you about your questions that you have. Like Lucy said, it's really great to have those pre-prepared. And if you're taken through to the formal kind of face-to-face interview, we love being able to refer back to those questions and talk through our answers to those. Most important, try to enjoy yourself. There's a real person reviewing it on the other side. I can assure you of that. And we're really excited to hear about you. I wondered, Rebecca or Lucy, Matt, if you had anything that you wish to add on that video interview.
Go on, Matt. Are you gonna?
No, I was just going to say I really echo that point about preparation. I was interviewing over the summer, and we had a few internet issues with candidates, and if internet's out of your control potentially, but then go check it first. Go and check that everything is working, because there's nothing worse than dropping out every 5 minutes or blurring and freezing. So control what you can control, and then as much as possible beyond that, treat it as if you were in the same room as the person.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Matt.
I was just going to add as well on the preparation. I know Matt mentioned that your tool sort of looks at your lighting and things. Don't be afraid to walk around your house with a laptop and find the place with the best internet connection or the best lighting, and make sure that you're happy and comfortable there as well. I'd also say if things do go wrong, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Most recruitment teams will be very understanding. So if something has gone drastically wrong with your internet, then don't be afraid to flag it and ask for help.
Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. So just moving on to general success in work, what makes them achieve a quick promotion? So Lucy, I just wondered whether you had any top tips here.
Yeah, so I think, starting out kind of early days, it's just getting to grips with your job, really try and take on all the feedback, advice that you can get from those above you, and incorporate that into your work. And I think kind of working collaboratively is the best way to do that, because within my role, we're working in a team all the time. So if you can show that you've got those skills and you're continuously helping others, developing others, also developing yourself, then that's going to stand you in good stead, because you're a value to the organization to take forwards. And in terms of success, everyone's still learning. And I think sometimes it's remembering that. So even those most senior, they don't know everything. They're still learning as they go. So, bear that in mind when you're kind of approaching your work, and undertake any training opportunities that you can. So, for example, I'm a business analyst, so I'm doing my business analyst diploma, and the learning's not going to stop. Like after that, I'm going to continue to develop, because, you have your mindset and then other people have their mindsets, and you can view things in different ways. So by undertaking that learning and also kind of working as a team, you're going to get those different perspectives, which will help you with your role and hopefully help you get to where you want to be.
Right. Thank you, Lucy. Matt, did you have anything on general success in work that you could contribute here?
Yeah, I mean, on a similar vein to Lucy, I think initially, at least, really focus on putting the team's goals above your own particular ones, because your own they'll follow, and make sure that you're contributing to the team first and foremost, because that's an attitude that will stand out. So don't worry about yourself too much, just focus on what the team's doing. And then also that growth mindset that, again, Lucy sort of touched on there. But if things don't go well, that's a great opportunity to learn. Like if things go well, great. What did I do? Can I do it again? What didn't go well? How can I learn from it? So every day is a learning opportunity, one way or the other. So I'd really focus on having a massive growth mindset. Finally, I'd also be really specific with senior people in the organisation. You can ask people, what do I need to do to take the next step? What behaviours, what skills, what achievements do I need to have for me to progress in this role? And because you'd be surprised, that doesn't often happen. People aren't specific about asking, what do I need to do to take that next step? So again, that will make you stand out from others.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, Matt. And I think for those that are maybe looking to switch careers, sometimes it can be really challenging to kind of figure out where to go. What key skills do I have that anyone else could possibly want? That kind of imposter syndrome coming in that quite often many of us have. So going out there and seeking guidance from others within different industries, maybe through the mentoring program that CMI have, or through employing a coach to help you really understand what areas get you to your peak performance, and how can you translate those across into other industries, would be something that I would recommend. Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on to kind of what to look for in a job. So these are things to consider for your longer term career. Lucy, did you have some things that you wanted to talk to us about in this section?
Yeah, sure. So I think linking back to what I said with the interview section, in terms of, asking the interviewer what kind of those questions that you want to know. So it links into, what you're looking for in your job. So you want to make sure it's an environment that's happy for you. For me, I'm a really sociable person. So I want to be in an environment where I'm surrounded by sociable people that, want to have a giggle whilst working. So being able to kind of understand that culture is really important, because, again, like I said, you're going to be a long time working. So you want to be in that happy environment for you. I think it's also knowing kind of where you want to go in the future. Like, do you have that career plan and that what we call 3 horizons, those 3 steps, kind of short, medium, long term, of where you want to go? Because you know, if you have that and you can present that within your organization to your manager, that will really help you set you on that path to get there, because they'll be supportive, they see where you want to go, and they know exactly how to help you. And also you can make sure that the organization you're within aligns to that. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Great, thank you. So some other considerations that I would like to put out for this kind of this concept of, you know, what to look for in a job. I'm in a situation where I'm in a dual career, and you might be thinking, what on earth is one of those? Well, it means that I have a career, but my partner does as well. And so sometimes making sure that you've had those conversations at home as to who takes priority at that time is really important. So I had an opportunity probably 10 or 12 years ago to go and work overseas, and it wasn't the right time for us, and my partner was promoted at that time, which was really great for us as a couple, but it was quite hard individually. So if you're in a relationship where, you know, you both have those dual career considerations, and making sure that we talk about those things openly, and that information is shared as to, you know, whose turn is it now, or you know, what can we do as a partnership. Many companies nowadays will be really keen, if they're keen to employ you, are really keen to understand what your partner does, and whether that's something that can be transferred. You know, what's the flexibility around that? As we've sort of emerging from our COVID-19 pandemic and crisis, companies are really being much more flexible in terms of the working arrangements and conditions. So make sure you're having those conversations with your partner about what flexibility do they have in their career, and then having those conversations with the recruitment team, with the Rebeccas of this world, and getting the right package for yourself, because that's really important. As employers, we want to employ the best candidate to do the job. So making sure that fits in with the life that they have crafted for themselves is really important. So thank you. Rebecca, Matt, anything else to add on this particular one? This is sort of what to look for in a job.
Go on, Rebecca, you go.
Thanks. I would just say, I think we've spoken about social media already, but I think a lot of companies now are realizing that they need to expand beyond just the LinkedIn sort of situation. So, for example, at Newton, we are quite active on Instagram, for example, and I know a lot of other sort of Big Four and consultancies are as well, and that's a really good insight into what's going on beyond just work. So often we'll post about people who are doing work with charity partners, or like different parties, events, exciting things that have happened in projects, and it gives you like a bit more of a real world insight as well. So you can see, you know, as Lucy mentioned, is this a sociable company? Does this line up with my values? And do a bit of extra research as well. If you can't connect with someone, then what other avenues can you go down to see if this is really the right path for you? And would echo what Emma said as well. If we recruit good people, we want to keep them. So just ask, like, even if you don't think it's realistic, ask the recruitment team, speak to HR. Most companies, if they'll want to keep you. And so we'll try and make those adjustments where they can. So don't be afraid to just ask.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I think we're probably around about the time to move on to our Q&A. So we've had some pre-submitted, and we've had some live ones as well. So I'm going to hopefully hand to Craig, who, he's joined us. Great. Thanks, Craig.
Hello, thank you, Emma. So yes, we do have some pre-submitted questions and some live questions that have come through. So the first question that we have is, in your application and interview, what elements of your experience do you think most impressed your future employer? Did they give you feedback?
I can take that. So when I spoke to the people that interviewed me, they liked the fact that I connected with them on LinkedIn before having the interview, so that they could kind of see a bit about me from my LinkedIn. They also liked that I had those personable skills, that we could talk about things other than what was, what the key questions were in the interview. And they, another thing was that I'd spoken to someone within the organisation already. I'd asked a whole load of questions. I'd researched kind of what the role really entailed, and could really relate it back to my own experience.
Perfect, thank you. So the second pre-submitted question that we have is, during your first year in work, what have you learned that would have been helpful to know as a final year student looking for a first job?
I think that the thing that I really learned was that everyone is learning, like I said previously. And I think when I first joined, sometimes you put those that are like director level on this pedestal where they're these amazing people that know everything, can solve all your questions, when actually, different situations are going to require different responses. And, you should always be learning. You should always be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I think, you've just got to kind of make the choice that's right for you, and just take on board what everyone says.
That's great. Thank you, Lucy. So if we just move on to some of the live questions that have come through. So we'll start with, what advice will you give for students from business management who want to secure a placement? Who would like to answer that?
I'm happy to, because I study business management at Swansea University, and the placement kind of process, there are so many placements out there, and it is often quite hard to get there. I think Rebecca touched on it in the past. Don't kind of apply to loads and loads, really kind of pick out the key ones that you want to apply to. And I would suggest doing some of the stuff that we've said, maybe look at that company on LinkedIn, find out a key contact, someone that perhaps has been at the same university as you, see if you can reach out, kind of understand the whole process. If there's any tips or tricks for things that you could put into your CV, if they could even get your foot in the door, get you in front of someone, those are all going to help you with hopefully securing the placement that you would like.
Perfect, thank you. And then the next one, not really a question as such, more of a comment. It's from Louise. So bias does exist in interviews. So I would advise steering clear of sports teams. I worked with a candidate who declared their football team and turned out that the interviewer was a rival football supporter. Are there any comments any of you would like to make on that?
Yeah, I can say something on that. It's a really good point, actually, Louise. So thank you for raising it. I guess it's how you phrase that, and maybe talking about a sport can create that connection, but maybe naming the team is the part that could break that connection. So I would just suggest, kind of treading carefully, using your common sense to try and navigate your way through that interview. So I don't know, Rebecca, whether you have anything that you wish to add on that particular comment from Louise there.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you've said. I think it's how you deal with that situation. If you realise that you support rival sports teams, make a little joke and then move on with the interview, then fantastic. If, the interview then gets bogged down by arguing over rival sports teams, then I think it's just making sure you approach it in a very mature way. But it's a good bias to be aware of.
I just seen Louise comment as well. He didn't get the job, so yeah.
I'd also just add that if that's the kind of person working in that organisation, maybe he dodged a bullet. Then if you're not getting a job on that front, then says more about the organisation than the interviewee.
Agree.
Thank you. Right, I think we have time for one more live question. As a recent marketing graduate, what skills would you recommend acquiring? Has anyone got any input for that?
I think it really depends on the job that you're applying to. So you really need to look at what job. If it is a marketing job, then perhaps look around the skills look on LinkedIn, what marketing jobs are available, what are the key skills that those companies are putting up, and then doing like Becky said, maybe with the STAR kind of model, going through and doing that so that you're aligned. But yeah, it really does depend on the job that you're applying to.
Completely agree with that. I was just going to add, I'm a maths graduate and I've ended up working in recruitment. So I think it really does depend. And also there's a lot of generalist skills that you can acquire as well. So for example, make sure that you've got really good communication skills, and that will set you up well in almost any industry. Similarly, if something like teamwork, being supportive of your peers, your confidence, that will land well anywhere. But if you are looking at specific marketing roles, then yeah, recommend connecting with someone that can support you in what's a bit more specific as well.
Yeah, I'll just add on that. Our top 3 skills that we identified with employers last year was teamwork, communication, and critical thinking. So those generalist skills, whereas the hard technical skills will change in 10 years, they'll be very different from what you're using right now. Those generalist skills, soft skills, or whatever you want to call them, they're going to remain really, really important.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there any closing comments or any thoughts that any of you would like to add before we finish?
I think from me, I'd just like to thank the panel really for giving their time today. It's all voluntary work that we're doing here, so it's really great to have some really interesting speakers. I think it's been a really useful discussion. Hopefully, I've found it interesting. I hope the audience have as well. So yeah, thank you so much, and I give you 10 minutes back over lunchtime. So go and enjoy a nice walk, hopefully in the sunshine.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. So yeah, that's it for today's session. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you to Emma, Matt, Rebecca, and Lucy for your insights. Don't forget, if you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat, and you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. And if you're not yet a member or subscriber, you can join our community via the link that's also in the live chat to gain full access to our Management Direct portal. You can also sign up to the free CMI newsletter for the latest trends and tips for managers and leaders. Thank you again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.